Hello, everyone. Today's topic is ego. And I can promise you, for most of you, this is not what you think is going to be about. You know how you have this voice in your head telling you should be doing this or you should be doing that, that's ruminating about the past, that is trying to predict unpredictable future, that's analyzing, overanalyzing every situation, that voice that never shuts up. So that's the voice of the ego. And it's actually been created by us. We are the ones that created it. And usually we created it in our childhood to protect ourselves from a certain situation, no matter what it was, right? So for example, and I can speak for my personal example, as a teenager, I moved a lot. So we moved to different countries. So I moved from Russia to Israel, where I had to learn a new language. So when I went to school, nobody understood me. So I had to pretend that I was absolutely fine on my own. So I've started isolating myself, not even physically isolating from people, but I started building this wall that's telling me I don't need anyone else. And then a year later, I moved to South Africa, where it was a different language. This time it was English that I did not speak. And again, as you can imagine, this wall got thicker and thicker. So I was putting more and more layers of protection. So as the years went by, and I would be, let's say, in a social situation where I would walk into a room and I didn't know people, the voice in my head would be like, go stand in a corner, nobody really interested in what you've got to say, and you're fine. You don't really need anyone. So I would go and I hang out, and then usually I would leave because I would just feel so uncomfortable. And what I did not realize is that it was just that self-protection that was kicking in and preventing me really from enjoying the company, enjoying meeting new people, and creating new experiences. So I just wanted to really set the tone for our conversation, and I pass over to Sarit, who I'm sure will have a different approach to ego.
It's not a different approach. I believe that ego is a mental concept. Yes, by the end of the day, it is the voice in your head. That voice in your head has been developing a voice since the day you are born. It's based on your experience in life, and that's actually a security mechanism. It's your defense mechanism against the world, against experience that you want to prevent from yourself. Another thing that I wanted to say is, did you ever thought about how you are absorbing trauma? It's when you are experiencing something that is so painful that it's written in your nerve system, and it usually creates an emotion, usually a negative emotion, that your body doesn't want to feel again. So emotion is the language of the body, and the minute that happens, the ego, which is a self-defense mechanism, is actually storing that and saying, oh, no, I'm not doing it again. Think about your first breakup from your first girlfriend, and probably you never dated anybody that looks like that or even comes close to that. Why? Because the suffering is something that your ego would not let you ever go through again. Okay, so ego is just a he's really here to protect us, to make sure that we are safe, that we are not going through any emotion, like putting your hand on the fire. You got the burn, you know not to do it again. So it's the same with that voice. And we actually need to make friend with it. So once I got it, so I think for me, stuff got better. Don't you think, Elena? It helped me understand myself a little bit better.
Yeah, so firstly, and that's something I've been grappling with for a long time and still am, it's a process. We need to understand that that voice isn't real. So whatever the thoughts come up, and like Sarit said, those thoughts create our emotions. So if you're feeling a negative emotions like fear, anxiety, sadness, loss, this is coming from the thinking, and emotions are like our guidance system. They're always letting us know whether our thinking is correct or incorrect. So the first thing to realize is if you're feeling that negative emotion, your thinking isn't right. It just isn't correct. And all that is just happening is that your protection mechanism is kicking in. Like for me, for example, in a situation when I walk into a room, I see a bunch of people I don't know. So instead of me actually going and introducing myself, I retract and I'm like, well, who would actually care like what I've got to say? They don't know me. And that goes back to my childhood. And that's once I became aware of that pattern, of that voice in my head, then I actually could create a bit of a distance and ask myself, is this true? Do those people really not interested to even have a little conversation with me? Well, no, it isn't true. So then the whole thing becomes, once you become aware of that voice in our head, we become aware that most of the time, actually all the time, it isn't true. We can then start asking ourselves, is this voice telling me the truth? So that's been really my approach on how to deal, with this never-ending thoughts in my head.
I agree with you. I never think that that voice is telling me the truth anyway. And we had a video about intuition. This voice is usually loud. Usually it speaks to me like I would never speak to anybody else in my life. Okay, because it's usually our worstest judge and our worst, between us, we are talking to ourselves like we will never, ever, ever let anybody else talk to us or dare to speak like that to anybody, to anybody, by the way. They would not be our friends if this is the way that we are going to talk to them. But the minute I understood he's not telling me the truth, but he's got good intention, and the sentence, the road to hell is paved with good intention. So it actually changed my whole experience, because I actually understood that he's got the good intention of me. It's just going about it the wrong way. And that's literally opened a new conversation I can have with myself, between me and me. And I think my challenge is not thinking that I know that he's not telling me the truth. I already know, for a while I already know that. It's actually recognizing that voice in our head, because sometimes it's so much burned in us that it became a reaction. I'm not giving him even the space to tell me. I'm just like reacting on an autopilot. And that's the second stage that you would probably, when you start this conversation and you start understanding that, you would start to notify that sometimes he doesn't even need to speak to you. You're just like reacting. You don't even answer. This is kind of my challenge right now, Lena, to give him the actual opportunity to talk to me, and me to tell him, I think it's time for new ways, new conversation, new opportunities.
Yeah, and the thing is, the more attention we give to that voice, to the thoughts in my head, the more we charge our emotions, right? And that's why we often react, and then later we're like, oh, why did I just do that? And if we don't become aware of it, it can actually we can self-sabotage ourselves, self-sabotage our relationships with other people, career promotions, amazing opportunities that come to us. I mean, one of the most common ones I hear, who do you think I am, or who do you think you are? I can't do this. I'm too old. I'm not qualified. I'm this, I am that. And all of this is just a protection mechanism that we have developed for ourselves because of some traumas or some experiences or events that we had in the past. So the most important thing is firstly to understand that you are not this voice, right? Because you are not your thoughts. Because think about it, if you were your thoughts, then you can turn it off and on, but you have no control over it. The thoughts just come and go. So just becoming really aware of these thoughts and creating a bit of a distance. And you almost like imagine like being in a movie theater and there's like all your thoughts and you're just observing them. And even just having that space, that's separating from yourself from the thoughts, you will begin to recognize how many thoughts are going through your minds. And if you had to give attention to every single one of them, it's a hard job, And then another thing we've got to understand that we can choose a different thought. So if the thought comes, I'm not good enough, well, what is the opposite of that, right? Because we have a choice what to feed our minds. So that's what I said in the beginning of the conversation. Change your environments. Look at the people who are in your environment. Look what information you are consuming. Start observing your minds to start really changing the way you think and the way you perceive the world around you.
And remember, where you give your attention, this is where your energy goes. This is where your energy flows. And yeah, I know that it's hard at the beginning because you are trying to absorb concepts that are not for the mind through the mind. The mind is that voice that is talking to you. So I know some of you may be getting very hard time now to get your brain wrapped up about what we just said, what the voice in my head are not real, thoughts are not real. This is who I am. Yes, but you are not that. We're not going to get to it. It's for a whole different other session. But the only thing we're trying to tell you right now is just challenge that voice in your head, that what we call ego. Try to have different conversation with him. Understand that not necessarily every conversation that is coming to your mind is actually true. So even if you don't agree, just, take it with you and, just play with it. Think about all the things that, you always have those moments where you said, I knew it. But you never remember that there is million other times that you weren't right. And when you weren't right, acknowledge that. Try to have a different conversation in yourself. And again, I'm going to say it again and again, it's not about what you end up doing. You can do whatever you want. It's just about expanding your mind. See other options out there. We used to have an exercise called taking your voice for coffee. Meaning go out, have a coffee, don't invite anybody. Because for me and for you, you've got somebody who's walking around with you all day that you can talk to. And just talk to it. Just talk to it. Let it go out loud. Let him say everything. Get to know that voice in your head. Take him out for coffee. Let's see how it goes. For the first time, even if you don't agree with us, we recommend you would actually get to know that voice in your head. It will surprise you. It will surprise you what he actually, if you give him time, what he would tell you. And that's your best friend. You're taking him everywhere with you and you don't take the time. I encourage you to take that best friend for a coffee, right, Lena?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, well, I don't take it for coffee. I normally like numb it with the wine when it gets too much. I do, but what I do a lot of is I just would sit and observe it. And then it actually shocks me, even still to this day, how can I give attention to that? It tells you to do one thing, then another, then completely contradict itself. Then it creates this massive story, but then something happens externally that actually, like, you go, I just told myself this whole story. I wound myself up, and actually it isn't true. And how many times that happens, right? It happens to all of us when we just imagine this worst case scenario, but over and over we've proven that we just made the whole thing up. So when you really become present to it, you start observing your thoughts, you become to recognize that none of them is real. But yes, like Sarit said, when you start fueling those thoughts with your energy, and remember, your thoughts create your emotions, and that's how we create our reality, right? Remember, we're speaking about imagination. So if you keep thinking about the same thing, and if you keep feeling about the same thing in the same way, you will create it in your reality. So if you keep on creating the experiences that you don't want to create anymore, start observing your thinking. That's the clue. Take your voice for a walk. I think I love that. Or for a coffee, whatever. For a walk, for a coffee somewhere. Become present.
Don't take it to wine.
Yeah, unless it's like
no, there is going beyond thought and there is going under thought. When you're consuming wine or alcohol or whatever, it's going beneath thoughts. Numbing it with binge or whatever, that's numbing thoughts. And going beyond thought is actually taking that voice to a coffee. That's going beyond thought because you are open in your mind to other options, starting to understand. As I said, I'm a big believer in putting space. And the first thing that I recommend is not be identified completely with your voice, doing it, making a space between you and your voice and taking it actually to coffee. It's actually the first identification you are doing to make a separation between you and that voice in your head. And that will create space that will allow you to continue having this conversation and expanding a little bit the different identification between you, your thoughts, and what the output of your action would be.
Yeah. And also, guys, if you just have a very, very noisy mind, I think, the person who really helped me the most was Michael Singer. So Google him. He's got some amazing books like Untethered Souls. He does he's all over YouTube also. He really helps us to understand that voice in our heads and actually how to distance ourselves from it, how to start choosing different thoughts and not really fuel the things we don't want to experience in our lives.
So for the extremists, which I'm not sure that there are a lot here, try to play with yourself when you are having no thoughts. So that's what I do, from traffic light to traffic light, from whatever, I'm doing the dishes, no thoughts. So I actually got better at it. I can actually expand the time that my mind is not talking to me, but my sport is having no thoughts. But I think for you at the beginning, just take your thoughts for a coffee, take that voice to a coffee, start putting this identification completely with that voice in your head.
Yeah, exactly. And start just even just having this awareness that those thoughts, if they don't make me feel good,
Not necessarily
not the right, it's not the right thoughts. It's not the right thoughts, and start choosing differently. But yeah, check out Michael Singer. This example that Sarit gave is good. Like maybe you're walking or you're driving from traffic light to traffic light. Try and stop your thoughts. I actually did that for a while. I forgot about it. And I must say, it requires a lot of effort initially. It does get easier, but it's really, really worth it.
And check out Eckhart Tolle, which is talking about the present moment. For me, he is my guru. Just for clarity, he is my guru. I'm following his teaching, and this is part of the practices that came out of his teaching. We will do a session about the present moment where I'll share tips. That would be one of them, and how you can feel your body, how you can lean into your breath. That will help you identify yourself in the present moment, and usually it makes your thoughts stop, because when you are concentrating on something else, or your energy is going somewhere else, but that's for a different video. Yeah. So I think it's a good place to close for today.
Yeah, definitely. I'll put in names of the books that we've mentioned in the comments below, and yeah, you guys can check them out. Thank you.
Bye.